The first gunshot shattered the window of Bellini's bistro at exactly 9:47 p.m. I was 3 tables from the entrance, fork halfway to my mouth, linguine dangling like a question I'd never get to finish asking. The glass exploded inward, a constellation of crystalline violence that caught the candlelight before raining down across white tablecloths and terrified faces. My body moved before my brain caught up. I dropped beneath the table as the second shot punched through the mahogany bar, splintering bottles of top-shelf whiskey. The smell hit immediately. Gunpowder and Macallan. Fear and broken glass. "Everyone down!" someone roared, but the stampede had already started. Heels clicking, chairs scraping, screams rising like smoke. I stayed low, my pulse hammering against my ribs. Through the chaos of legs and overturned furniture, I saw him. He stood near the back exit, impossibly still while everyone else scattered like startled birds. Tall, dark suit that probably cost more than my rent, and a face carved from something harder than marble. He wasn't running. He was waiting. His eyes, slate gray, calculating, swept the room with the precision of a predator counting prey. When his gaze landed on me, crouched beneath table 7 in my stupid cocktail dress and cheaper heels, something flickered across his expression. Surprise? Recognition? I couldn't tell. Then his hand moved to his waist, and I saw the gun. The third shot came from outside, closer now. The front door exploded open and 3 men poured in, weapons raised, faces obscured by black masks. Professional, coordinated, hunting. "Dante Marchetti," one of them called out, voice muffled but certain. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." So, the man in the suit had a name. Dante didn't respond. Instead, he moved, fluid, lethal, ducking behind a pillar as bullets chased his shadow. He returned fire twice, and I watched 2 of the masked men stumble, one dropping his weapon with a clatter that rang louder than my heartbeat. The third man advanced, and I realized with cold clarity that his trajectory would bring him directly past my hiding spot. I needed out. Now. The kitchen was too far. The front entrance was a death trap. But the side door, the one that led to the alley and the small parking lot, was maybe 20 feet away. Through chaos, through crossfire, through stupidity. I didn't think. I ran. Low and fast, using overturned chairs as cover, praying my dark dress would blend with the shadows. Behind me, another shot. The smell of blood now, metallic and thick. Someone was crying. Someone else wasn't moving. I hit the side door hard, shoulder first, and stumbled into the alley. Cold November air slapped my face, carrying rain and garbage and the distant wail of sirens that weren't close enough. The parking lot sprawled before me, a dozen cars, all anonymous in the darkness except one. A black Maserati Quattroporte, gleaming even in the dim light, parked at an arrogant angle across 2 spaces. I'd noticed it earlier, admired it with the kind of longing I usually reserved for things I'd never touch. The key would be inside, I was certain. Men who drove cars like that never expected anyone to be stupid enough to steal them. Men like Dante Marchetti. My hands were shaking as I reached the driver's side. Locked, of course, but the window was cracked. Just an inch, enough for ventilation, enough for desperation. I pulled the bobby pin from my hair and bent it with my teeth, the metallic taste sharp on my tongue. My father had taught me this, before he'd taught me anything about being careful, about staying invisible, about not getting involved in things that would get me killed. Sorry, Dad. The lock popped in 18 seconds. I slid into the leather interior, surrounded by the smell of expensive cologne and danger. No key in the ignition, but I didn't need one. The steering column cover came off easily. These luxury models were always more concerned with aesthetic than actual security. Wires exposed, I stripped 2 with my teeth, twisted them together, and the engine purred to life. 30 seconds. Maybe less. Impressive. My heart stopped. Dante Marchetti stood beside the open driver's door, gun lowered but not holstered, blood streaking his white shirt beneath his suit jacket. His face was closer now, and I could see the sharp angles of his jaw, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way his eyes held something between amusement and lethal calculation. "Get out," he said quietly, "or get in the passenger seat." Behind him, shadows moved in the alley entrance. Sirens growing louder. Why would I? Because they're still looking for me, and you just made yourself part of this. His voice was low, controlled, but something underneath it vibrated with barely contained violence. And because you can hotwire a Maserati in under 30 seconds, which means you're either very talented or very desperate. He tilted his head slightly. Or both. The shadows were closer now, voices calling out in Italian. I slid across to the passenger seat. Dante folded himself behind the wheel with predatory grace, gripped the wheel with blood-stained hands, and smiled. Small, dark, dangerous. "Where have you been all my life?" he murmured. Then he slammed the car into gear and launched us into the night, leaving behind sirens and bodies and any chance I'd ever had of staying invisible. The Maserati ate the wet streets like a starving thing. I gripped the door handle as Dante took a corner at a speed that should have been physically impossible, the tires screaming against asphalt. Rain hammered the windshield in sheets, turning the world outside into a blur of neon and darkness. "Who are you?" His voice cut through the engine's roar, calm as Sunday morning. "Someone who should have stayed home tonight." My knuckles were white against the leather. Who were those men? Business associates with poor conflict resolution skills. I laughed, a sharp, breathless sound that surprised us both. Business associates don't usually bring automatic weapons to dinner. You'd be surprised. He glanced at me, and even in profile I caught the dangerous curve of his mouth. Name? Does it matter? It might, especially if they got a good look at you. Another turn, this one smoother, controlled. We were heading away from the city center, toward the old industrial district where streetlights died young. They'll assume you're with me now, which makes you either an asset or a liability. My stomach twisted. I'm not with anyone. I was just stealing my car? Borrowing, temporarily, under duress. Borrowing. He repeated the word like he was tasting something rare. And the hot wiring? Where does a woman in a cocktail dress learn that particular skill? I watched the city slide past, calculating. Every instinct I'd honed over 26 years of staying under the radar, staying safe, staying invisible was screaming at me to lie. Give a fake name. Make up a story. Disappear the first chance I got. But something about the blood on his shirt, the casual way he held death in his hands, told me that Dante Marchetti would know a lie the moment it left my lips. My father, I said finally. He was a mechanic. Taught me about engines before he taught me about anything else. Was? Past tense. 3 years now. Dante was quiet for a moment, navigating through narrow streets I didn't recognize. I'm sorry. The words caught me off guard. They sounded genuine, which seemed impossible coming from a man who'd just killed 2 people without breaking a sweat. Mia, I heard myself say. My name is Mia Russo. His hands tightened on the wheel. Barely perceptible, but I noticed. Russo. It's a common name. In certain circles, yes. He pulled into an underground parking structure, one of those anonymous concrete caverns that swallowed cars whole. But not so common that I don't know most of the families who carry it. His eyes found mine in the darkness. Which Russos? None that matter to you. Let me be the judge of that. The parking structure was empty except for 2 other vehicles, both black, both expensive. Dante killed the engine, and suddenly the silence was deafening, Just rain drumming on concrete above us, my heartbeat, and the cooling tick of the engine. My father was nobody, I said, each word careful. He fixed cars in a shop in Queens. No connections, no family business beyond brake pads and oil changes. Just a man who drank too much and died too young. I met his gaze. Not every Russo is part of your world. My world. Something dark flickered across his face. You say that like you understand what it is. I know enough to recognize it when I see it. I thought of the bodies in the restaurant, the precision of those masked men, the way Dante moved like violence was his first language. You're Mafia, probably high up. The kind of man my father told me to run from. Smart man. Dante's hand drifted to his side, where his shirt clung to his skin, dark and wet. Did he also teach you to run toward danger? Because stealing my car in the middle of a hit seems counterintuitive to that particular philosophy. I wasn't stealing. You hot-wired a $200,000 vehicle. Because you were being shot at and I needed an exit. My voice rose, echoing off concrete. What was I supposed to do? Wait politely for the gunfire to stop? For the first time since I'd met him, all of 20 minutes ago, my God. Dante Marchetti smiled. Really smiled. It transformed his face from something carved and dangerous into something almost human. Almost. Fair point. He opened his door. Come on. Come on where? Somewhere you won't get killed in the next hour. He paused. Unless you'd prefer I drop you at the nearest police station. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your evening. I thought about that option. Thought about the questions, the attention, the possibility that whoever wanted Dante dead might look into everyone who'd been in that restaurant. Thought about my small apartment, my quiet job at the bookstore, my carefully constructed invisible life. All of it suddenly felt as substantial as smoke. Why are you helping me? I asked. Dante leaned against the car, studying me with those slate-gray eyes. Blood still streaked his shirt, but he wore it like just another accessory. Because you didn't scream. Because you ran smart, not just fast. Because you can hotwire a Maserati in under 30 seconds, which tells me you're resourceful. He tilted his head slightly. And because when you looked at me in that restaurant, you weren't looking at a monster. You were looking at an exit strategy. That's what you are. An exit strategy. For tonight, yes. He straightened, wincing slightly. Tomorrow, we'll see. The way he said it, casual, certain, sent ice down my spine. Tomorrow implied a continuation. Tomorrow implied I was already tangled in something I didn't understand. I should go home, I said, but even I heard how weak it sounded. You should. Dante moved toward the elevator, and despite everything screaming at me to run, I followed. But you won't, because you're smart enough to know that the moment you walk back into your normal life, you'll be wondering if they saw your face, if they know your name, if they're waiting. The elevator doors opened. Inside, warm light and mirrors that reflected my terrified expression back at me. One night, I said, then I'm gone. Dante stepped inside, holding the door. One night. But the way he said it made it sound like a promise we both knew he wouldn't keep. The elevator climbed in silence, counting floors and soft electronic beeps that measured the distance between who I was an hour ago and who I was becoming. Dante stood across from me, one hand pressed against his side, the other hanging loose, deceptively relaxed. But I'd watched him move in that restaurant. Nothing about this man was ever truly relaxed. You're bleeding, I said. I'm aware. Shouldn't you, I don't know, go to a hospital? His laugh was dry, humorless. Yes. I'll walk into Mount Sinai's ER with a bullet graze and explain that I acquired it during a business disagreement. I'm sure that'll go well. The elevator stopped at the 32nd floor. The doors opened onto a private vestibule, all dark wood and understated wealth. One door. His door. The apartment beyond was nothing like I expected. I'd braced myself for red velvet and gold fixtures, the kind of tasteless opulence that men with blood money usually preferred. Instead, I walked into something that felt almost lived in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's glittering sprawl. Modern furniture in grays and blacks. Bookshelves, actual bookshelves, filled with worn spines and dog-eared pages. A chess set on a side table, mid-game, pieces arranged like someone had been studying a problem. Bathrooms through there. Dante gestured toward a hallway. First aid kit under the sink. I need you to look at this. I stared at him. I'm not a doctor. No, but you have steady hands and a working knowledge of engines. A bullet graze is simpler than a carburetor. He shrugged off his jacket, wincing. Please. The please surprised me more than anything else he'd said tonight. I found the first aid kit exactly where he'd indicated. Extensive. Professional. The kind that suggested this wasn't the first time someone had bled in this apartment. When I returned to the living room, Dante had his shirt off. I tried not to stare. Failed. His torso was a map of violence. Old scars crisscrossing his ribs, a burn mark on his left shoulder, muscle definition that spoke of discipline and danger. And blood, fresh and dark, seeping from a gash along his side. It's not deep, he said, reading my expression. Bullet kissed me, that's all. I set the kit on the coffee table, hands steadier than I felt. Sit. He obeyed, settling onto the couch with the careful movements of someone accustomed to pain. I knelt beside him, close enough to smell gunpowder and expensive cologne and something underneath, something warm and distinctly him. This is insane, I murmured, opening antiseptic wipes. Which part? All of it. I pressed the wipe against the wound. He didn't flinch. This morning I was worried about inventory at the bookstore. Now I'm playing field medic for a Mafia boss in a penthouse. You work at a bookstore. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Page and Spine, off Houston Street. I manage the rare books section. I cleaned the blood away, revealing the angry red line where the bullet had carved through skin. He was right. Not deep, but close. Quiet job. Quiet life. You don't seem like someone who wants a quiet life. I looked up at him. His face was inches from mine. Those gray eyes studying me with an intensity that made my breath catch. You don't know anything about what I want. Don't I? His hand lifted, fingers brushing a strand of hair away from my face. The gesture was gentle, incongruous with the violence still staining his skin. You ran tonight, but not away from the danger, through it. You chose the hardest exit, the most complicated escape, and when you could have left me behind, you got in the car. You told me to get in the car. I gave you a choice. His thumb traced my jawline, and I should have pulled away, should have remembered that this man killed people, that his world was bullets and blood and things I'd spent my whole life avoiding. But I didn't move. Why rare books? He asked quietly. The shift in topic threw me. What? At the bookstore. Why rare books specifically? I applied butterfly bandages to the wound, focusing on my hands rather than his face. Because old things have stories, not just the words printed in them, but the lives they've touched. A first edition carries every person who's ever turned its pages. Every coffee stain, every cracked spine. It's history. Evidence that something mattered enough to survive. When I looked up, something had shifted in his expression. Softened, maybe, though that seemed impossible. My mother collected books, he said. First editions, mostly. Poetry. She died when I was 12. I pressed gauze over the bandages, securing it with medical tape. I'm sorry. She would have liked you. His hand caught mine, stilling my movements. This woman who steals cars and patches bullet wounds and talks about books like they're alive. I didn't steal. Mia. The way he said my name stopped me cold. Those men, tonight, the Volkov brothers. They won't stop because I killed 2 of their soldiers. They'll come harder, meaner. And if they think you matter to me, if they think you're leverage, they'll come for you. Fear slicked down my spine. I don't matter to you. We just met. That won't matter to them. His grip tightened slightly. You were in my car. You're in my home. In their eyes, you're already mine. I'm not anyone's. I know. Something flickered across his face. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Which is exactly why you're in danger. I pulled my hand back, standing up. The city glittered beyond the windows, oblivious to the small war being waged inside this penthouse. So what do? Hide? Run? Pretend tonight didn't happen? Dante stood too, moving closer until I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You stay. Here. Where I can protect you. For how long? Until it's safe. And when will that be? His smile was dark, edged with something that might have been regret. I don't know. I should have argued. Should have insisted on going home. On reclaiming my quiet life. On forgetting the way his hands felt against my skin. Instead, I looked at the chess set on the side table, black and white pieces locked in eternal conflict, and wondered which color I was supposed to be. One night, I said. Again. But we both knew I was lying. I woke to the smell of coffee and the quiet sound of someone speaking Russian. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't remember where I was. The sheets were too soft, the ceiling too high, the light filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows too bright. Then memory crashed back. The restaurant, the bullets, Dante's blood on my hands. I'd fallen asleep on his couch sometime after midnight, wearing a borrowed t-shirt that smelled like expensive detergent and danger. Now morning light painted everything gold, making last night feel like something I'd imagined. Except for the voices. I sat up slowly, orienting myself. The apartment stretched out in clean lines and shadows, and through a half-open door, I could see Dante's silhouette against the window of what looked like an office. He was on the phone, his voice low and clipped, switching between English and what I was now certain was Russian. Niet. Volkov doesn't move without approval from Moscow. Find out who sanctioned this. I shouldn't have been listening. Should have made noise, announced I was awake, given him privacy. Instead, I stayed frozen, watching the rigid line of his shoulders, the way his free hand clenched and released. I don't care if it takes 3 days or 3 weeks. I want names. All of them. A pause. And Luca? The girl stays out of this. Completely. Are we clear? The girl. Me. He ended the call and stood there for a moment, head bowed, looking nothing like the controlled predator from last night. He looked tired. Human. Then he turned and saw me watching. Coffee's in the kitchen, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I wasn't sure how you take it. Black is fine. I stood, suddenly aware of how bare my legs were in his shirt. I should probably go home. Get changed. No. The word was flat, absolute. Excuse me? Dante moved into the living room, and now I could see him properly in daylight. He'd changed clothes, dark jeans, a black Henley that clung to his frame. The bandage I'd applied last night was visible at his side. I had someone check your apartment this morning. 2 men were watching it. Volkov's crew. Ice crystallized in my chest. They know where I live. They know everything by now. Name, address, employment history. They're efficient when they're motivated. He crossed to a laptop on the dining table, angled it toward me. Facial recognition from the restaurant's security footage. You're clear enough in 3 frames. The images showed me crouched under the table, running toward the exit, my face caught in profile by the emergency lighting. I looked terrified, young, exposed. This is insane. My voice came out hollow. I'm nobody. I sell books. I'm not part of this world. You are now. Because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time? Because you got in my car. Dante closed the laptop with a soft click. Because the Volkov brothers lost 2 men and their target escaped. They need someone to blame, someone to hurt. And you're convenient. I sank onto the arm of the couch, my legs suddenly unsteady. What do they want? From you? That's complicated. I think I've earned complicated. He studied me for a long moment, something calculating happening behind those gray eyes. Then he moved to the bookshelf, pulled out a leather-bound volume, and extracted a photograph from between its pages. The photo showed 3 men on what looked like a yacht deck. Young, confident, dangerous even in their expensive casual wear. I recognized Dante immediately, maybe 5 years younger, his arm around a blonde man with Slavic features and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Alexei Volkov, Dante said quietly. We were friends once, business partners. His father ran the Russian operations in the city. Mine handled Italian interests. We were supposed to be the future, the generation that ended the old feuds, that made everyone rich. What happened? His sister happened. Dante's jaw tightened. Katya. She was 22, brilliant, studying architecture at Columbia. She got caught in the crossfire of a territorial dispute. A dispute I'd arranged. The weight of those words settled between us. Did you... I couldn't finish the question. Kill her? No. But the men who did were following my orders. My strategy. My need to prove something to my father. He placed the photo on the coffee table face down. She died in a parking garage, shot 4 times by men who didn't even know her name. Collateral damage. I thought about the bodies in the restaurant, the casual violence, the efficiency of death. When? 3 years ago. The same year my father died. The same year I'd started building my quiet, invisible life. Alexei's been hunting me ever since, Dante continued. Systematically destroying my businesses, killing my allies, waiting for the perfect moment. Last night was supposed to be that moment. His eyes met mine. He didn't account for a woman who could steal cars. Stop calling it stealing. What would you call it? Survival. Something like approval flickered across his face. Fair enough. I looked at the photograph again, at the young men who'd thought they could remake the world in their image. You can't make this right. What happened to his sister? No, but I can keep you from becoming another name on his list of people I've destroyed. Dante moved closer, crouching in front of me until we were eye level. I need you to understand something, Mia. These aren't men who make threats and walk away. They're patient, methodical. They will wait months, years if necessary, for the right moment to hurt me. And right now, you're the easiest way to do that. So what do? Hide here forever? Become your prisoner? Guest, he corrected. And no, not forever. Just until I can negotiate terms or eliminate the threat. Eliminate. The word tasted like copper. You mean kill him. If necessary. I stood up, needing distance, needing air. The city, sprawled beyond the windows, millions of people living their ordinary lives, unaware of the wars being waged in penthouses and parking garages. I don't want anyone dying because of me, I said. They won't be dying because of you. Dante's voice was quiet, certain. They'll be dying because of choices I made 3 years ago. Choices I have to live with every day. I turned to face him. Do you regret it? What happened to her? Every single day. His honesty was brutal, unvarnished. But regret doesn't bring back the dead. It just makes you more careful with the living. Outside, the morning sun climbed higher, and I realized with stunning clarity that my quiet life, my books and my routines and my carefully maintained invisibility, was gone, burned away like morning fog. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll stay. For now. Dante nodded once, and I caught something in his expression that might have been relief, or something more dangerous. Something that looked like hope. The days blurred into a strange sort of captivity that didn't feel like captivity at all. Dante left most mornings before I woke, returning at odd hours smelling like cigarette smoke and winter air. He never told me where he went, and I learned not to ask. The apartment became my world, 32 floors above a city I could see but not touch, surrounded by books and silence and the constant low hum of danger I couldn't quite name. On the third day, he came home with shopping bags. What's this? I was curled in the armchair by the window, halfway through a first edition of The Great Gatsby I'd found on his shelf. Clothes, toiletries, things you'll need. He set the bags on the coffee table, something almost sheepish in the gesture. I guessed on sizes. I pulled out a cashmere sweater in deep burgundy, designer jeans, underwear that probably cost more than my monthly subway pass. You bought me underwear. I had my assistant do it, if that makes it less awkward. It doesn't. But I kept the clothes anyway. What else could I do? By the 5th day, we'd fallen into an accidental rhythm. I'd wake to find coffee already made, a bagel or pastry from the bakery downstairs. I'd read, sometimes venturing into his office to use the laptop. Carefully monitored, he'd warned, no social media, no contact with anyone from my old life. He'd return in the evenings, sometimes bleeding, sometimes just tired, and we'd sit in the living room like two people playing house in the wreckage of something neither of us understood. We didn't talk about Alexei Volkov. We didn't talk about the men watching my apartment, or how long this arrangement would last. Instead, we talked about books. You've read Bulgakov? I held up The Master and Margarita, a Russian edition with Cyrillic text I couldn't decipher. Dante looked up from his chess game. He played against himself most nights, working through problems from a worn book of Soviet championships. My mother's copy. She used to read it to me before bed, translating as she went. Your mother was Russian. Georgian, technically. But yes. He moved a night, studied the board. She married into the Italian side. It was controversial. I settled onto the couch, tucking my legs beneath me. But your father allowed it. My father loved her enough to start a small war over her. Something softened in his voice. He's not a good man, Mia, but he loved her completely. The kind of love that destroys things. Is that the only kind of love in your world? The destructive kind? His eyes met mine across the chessboard. I don't know. I've never tried any other kind. The admission hung between us, heavy and honest. On the 7th day, everything shifted. I was in the kitchen, attempting to make dinner from the sparse ingredients in his refrigerator. Dante ate like someone who forgot food was necessary. When I heard the front door open. Voices, low and urgent. Can't keep her here indefinitely. The Volkovs aren't backing down, and now the commission is asking questions. Let them ask. Dante's voice, cold and controlled. Dante, be reasonable. She's a civilian. She doesn't belong in this. She's here. That makes her mine to protect. I froze, knife hovering over an onion, listening to them argue about me like I was an object. A problem to be solved. And when Alexei finds out where she is? You think these walls will stop him? The other voice. Male, older, edged with frustration. You're letting your guilt over Katya cloud your judgment. My judgment is fine, Luca. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're keeping a pretty girl in your apartment and calling it protection. The silence that followed was arctic. Get out, Dante said quietly. Footsteps. The door closing. Then Dante appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression carved from stone. You heard that. It wasn't a question. I set down the knife. Yes? Luca's right. This isn't sustainable. He leaned against the doorframe, and I caught the exhaustion in the line of his shoulders. The Volkovs know you're somewhere. They're pressuring my businesses, attacking my shipments, waiting for me to make a mistake. And keeping you here, it's becoming complicated. Complicated how? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he crossed to where I stood, close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath, see the shadow of stubble along his jaw. There are rules in this world. Lines we don't cross. And one of them is that you don't involve innocents. You don't make civilians into targets. I'm already a target. Because of me. His hand lifted, hesitating before his fingers brushed my cheek. Which means I should let you go. Set you up somewhere far from here. A new identity. A new life. That's what someone smart would do. My heart hammered against my ribs. But I don't want to. The confession came out rough, almost angry. I don't want you in some anonymous city living an anonymous life. I want you, here, in my space, reading my books and making terrible dinners and looking at me like I'm something more than the sum of my crimes. I should have stepped back. Should have remembered the photograph of Katya Volkov, the bodies in the restaurant, all the reasons why Dante Marchetti was a man I should run from. But I'd been running my whole life, from my father's mistakes, from poverty, from anything that looked like risk. And standing here, trapped 32 floors above a city at war, I was tired of running. I don't want to go, I whispered. Something ignited in his eyes. Mia? I know it's insane. I know you're dangerous and this whole situation is impossible. But for the first time in 3 years, I feel... I searched for the word. Awake. Like I'm actually living instead of just surviving. This isn't living. This is survival. Then maybe I've been doing both wrong. I closed the distance between us, my hand finding his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath my palm. Steady. Certain. Maybe survival is supposed to feel like this. Like what? His voice had dropped to something dangerous, intimate. Like drowning and breathing at the same time. Dante's hand slid into my hair, tilting my face up to his. If I kiss you, everything changes. You understand that? Everything already changed. The moment I got in your car. That was survival. His thumb traced my lower lip. This is choice. Then let me choose. He kissed me like a man surrendering to something inevitable. Slow at first, testing, then deeper as I pressed closer. His other hand found the small of my back, pulling me against him until there was no space left between us. Just heat and want, and the distant understanding that we were both making a mistake. But God, what a beautiful mistake it was. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against mine. One night, he murmured, echoing my words from a week ago. That's what you said. I lied. His laugh was soft, almost relieved. So did I. We didn't sleep together that night. Instead, Dante made us finish cooking dinner. Pasta with whatever ingredients we could salvage, eaten at the kitchen counter while rain drummed against the windows. We talked about nothing important. His mother's recipe for osso buco, my father's habit of singing off-key while he worked, the used bookstore in Brooklyn where I'd found my first Hemingway. Normal things. Human things. But the kiss hung between us like smoke, changing the shape of every silence. When he finally walked me to the guest room, his room, technically, he'd been sleeping on the couch, he stopped in the doorway. I meant what I said earlier, about choice. His hand rested on the doorframe, close but not touching. You can still leave, Mia. I'll set you up somewhere safe. New name, new life. You'll never have to see me again. Is that what you want? What I want stopped mattering the moment Katya Volkov died. His voice was quiet, edged, with something raw. What I want has a body count. I stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of darker gray in his eyes, the small scar above his eyebrow. And if I want to stay anyway? Then you're more reckless than I thought. But his hand found mine in the darkness, fingers intertwining. Or braver, I haven't decided which. Maybe both. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss against my knuckles, achingly gentle for a man made of violence. Get some sleep. Tomorrow might be complicated. It was. I woke to voices again, but this time they were sharp, urgent. I pulled on jeans and one of the sweaters Dante had bought me, following the sound to his office. 3 men stood around his desk, their postures radiating tension. Dante was on his phone, his face carved from ice. When he saw me, something flickered in his expression. Concern, maybe, or warning. Find him, he said into the phone. I don't care if you have to burn down every warehouse from here to Staten Island. He ended the call, his eyes never leaving mine. Mia, go back to the bedroom. What's happening? Now. The command in his voice sent ice down my spine, but I didn't move. One of the other men, dark-haired, maybe 30, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, stepped forward. Boss, she should know. If Volkov's moving, she doesn't need to know anything except how to stay alive. Dante's voice was arctic, which starts with her not being in this room. Alexei knows she's here, doesn't he? The words left my mouth before I could stop them. That's what this is about. The silence that followed confirmed everything. Dante crossed to me, gripped my shoulders. Listen to me very carefully. Marco is going to take you downstairs to the car. There's a safe house in New Jersey. No. This isn't a negotiation. You're right. It's not. I pulled away from him. Because I'm not running while you stay here and wait for him to come. Mia? You said I had a choice. You said everything changed when you kissed me. My voice shook but held. So let me choose to stay. The man with the scar, Marco apparently, cleared his throat. Boss, we've got maybe 2 hours before Volkov's crew reaches the building. We need to move. Dante's jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought he'd physically throw me over his shoulder and force me into that car. Instead, he turned to Marco. Secure all entry points. I want men on every floor. No one gets past the 20th without clearance. And her? She stays with me. He looked at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. If you're staying, you follow every order I give you without question. Understand? I nodded. Say it. I understand. The next 2 hours moved like a fever dream. Men appeared and disappeared from the apartment. Some I recognized from previous days. Others new. All carrying that same dangerous competence. Weapons appeared on the dining table, cleaned and checked with practiced efficiency. Marco stationed himself by the windows with binoculars, watching the street below. I sat on the couch, feeling useless and terrified and strangely calm. Dante worked his phone continuously, orchestrating something I couldn't fully understand. But I caught fragments, shipments being rerouted, alliances being called in, threats being made in 3 different languages. Finally, he sat beside me, close enough that our thighs touched. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. About Katya. I turned to face him. Okay. The official story is that she died in crossfire, collateral damage in a territorial dispute. His hands clenched into fists against his knees. But that's not the whole truth. My heart stuttered. She was targeted specifically. A message to Alexei about overstepping his boundaries. And He stopped, breath shuddering. I knew. Not that it would be her, but that someone close to him would be hit. I approved the strategy, the violence, the message. Dante, I didn't pull the trigger, but I might as well have. His eyes met mine, and they were devastated. So when I tell you that keeping you safe is the only thing that matters, understand that it's not about redemption. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure Alexei doesn't turn you into another ghost I carry. I took his face in my hands, forcing him to hold my gaze. I'm not a ghost. I'm right here. For now. Then now is enough. He kissed me again, different from last night's testing sweetness. This was desperate, almost violent in its intensity. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, like he could somehow absorb me into his skin, keep me safe through proximity alone. When we broke apart, Marco was studiously looking away. "Boss," he said, voice carefully neutral. "They're here." Dante stood, his entire demeanor shifting from the vulnerable man I'd just held to something harder, colder. He pulled a gun from the holster at his back, checked the magazine with automatic precision. "How many?" 8, maybe 10. They've surrounded the building." "Volkov himself?" "Unknown, but someone high level is coordinating." Dante turned to me, and I saw the calculation in his eyes, the weighing of options, strategies, acceptable losses. "Bedroom. Lock the door. If anyone comes through that isn't me or Marco, there's a gun in the nightstand. Use it. Dante, please." The word cracked something in his composure. "Please, Mia. If you've ever trusted anyone in your life, trust me now. Stay hidden." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him I wasn't a damsel, that I could fight, that leaving him felt impossible. But the look in his eyes stopped me. "Okay," I whispered. I kissed him once more, quick, fierce, then fled to the bedroom. Behind me, I heard Marco say something in Italian, and Dante's response, cold and certain, "Let them come." I lasted exactly 4 minutes in that bedroom before everything went to hell. The first gunshot cracked through the apartment, like thunder, sharp, immediate, too close. I pressed myself against the wall beside the door, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. More shots, shouting in Russian and Italian, words I couldn't understand but whose violence needed no translation. Glass shattered. Something heavy hit the floor. Then silence. The kind of silence that felt like held breath, like the moment before a body hits pavement. I couldn't stay in this room. Couldn't hide while Dante... The bedroom door exploded inward. I didn't think. My hand found the nightstand drawer, closed around the gun Dante had mentioned, and I was raising it before my brain caught up to my body. The man in the doorway froze. Not Dante. Not Marco. Someone else. Blonde, young, with Slavic features and eyes that held nothing but cold calculation. He wore tactical gear, a radio clipped to his vest, blood spatter across his chest that I prayed wasn't Dante's. "Don't," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. He smiled. Actually smiled. "You must be Mia." "Get out. Alexei wants to meet you." He took a step forward, unbothered by the gun. "He's curious about the woman who made Dante Marchetti soft." I said, "Get out." "I don't think you'll shoot. Girls who sell books don't pull triggers." He was wrong. I fired. The shot went wide, intentionally mostly, punching through the wall beside his head. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, ringing in my ears like a bell. But it had the desired effect. The smile vanished from his face. "Next one goes between your eyes." I lied. My hands were shaking so badly I'd be lucky to hit the wall again. He raised his hands slowly, backing toward the door. "Alexei will hear about this." "Good. Tell him I'm not interested in meeting." The moment he disappeared into the hallway, I moved. gun still raised, I edged through the doorway, following the path of destruction through the apartment. The living room looked like a war zone. Furniture overturned, bullet holes stitching the walls, the floor-to-ceiling windows spider-webbed with cracks. 2 bodies, neither of them Dante, thank God, lay sprawled near the entrance. Blood pooled on the hardwood, dark and spreading. I found him in the office. He was pressed against the wall beside the door, gun raised, a line of blood tracking down his left arm. Marco was across from him, also armed, speaking rapidly into a radio. When Dante saw me, fury and relief warred across his face. I told you to stay in the bedroom. Someone came through the door. I convinced him to leave. Convinced? He saw the gun in my hand, still raised, my finger properly outside the trigger guard the way my father had taught me. Jesus Christ, Mia. Did you shoot someone? At someone. There's a difference. Despite everything, the blood, the bodies, the fact that men were actively trying to kill us, something that looked suspiciously like pride flickered in his eyes. They've pulled back, Marco reported, lowering the radio. Regrouping on the street. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they try again. How many? 6 down. 4 still operational. And boss? Marco hesitated. Alexei's in the car outside. He wants to talk. Dante's expression went absolutely cold. No. He said he'll leave. Take his men and go. If you come down. It's a trap. Probably. Marco's voice was grim. But we're running low on ammunition and reinforcements are 20 minutes out. If we can buy time, by offering me up for execution? Dante laughed, but there was no humor in it. I know how Alexei operates. Then what's the play? Silence. I could see Dante thinking, calculating odds, weighing lives against strategy. His gaze drifted to the windows, to the street 32 floors below. I'll go, I said. Both men turned to stare at me. Absolutely not. Dante's voice was flat, absolute. He wants to meet me. You heard what that soldier said. I lowered the gun, my hands still shaking but my voice steady. So let me go down there. Let me talk to him. Mia? You said Alexei lost his sister because of your war. Because people like you treat people like her as acceptable losses. I stepped closer to Dante, forcing him to see me. So, let me be something different. Let me be the person who walks into danger willingly. Not as collateral damage, but as what? A sacrifice? As someone who gives him a choice. I touched his face, felt the tension vibrating through him. Someone who looks him in the eye and reminds him that killing me won't bring Katya back. That it just makes him like you. Like everyone in this city who thinks violence is the only language that matters. It is the only language that matters. But his voice cracked on the words. Then teach him a different one. Marco was watching us with something like awe. Boss, she might be right. If Volkov sees her, talks to her, he's not a monster. He's a brother who lost his sister. Maybe he puts a bullet in her head to hurt me. Dante's hands gripped my shoulders. Maybe he takes her and I never see her again. Maybe 1,000 things that end with me burying another woman I couldn't protect. Another woman you love, I said softly. The words hung between us like a detonation. Dante's eyes closed. When they opened again, they were devastated. Yes. How long have you known? Since you stole my car? A ghost of a smile. Maybe before. The moment you looked at me in that restaurant and didn't see a monster. I saw a monster, I corrected. I just saw everything else too. His forehead dropped to mine, and for a moment we stood there. 2 people in the wreckage of his life, surrounded by blood and broken glass and the impossible weight of wanting. If I let you do this, he whispered, and something happens, then you'll know I chose it. that I wasn't collateral damage or acceptable loss. I pulled back, met his gaze. That I was someone who mattered enough to make my own terrible decisions. Marco's radio crackled. "Boss, Volkov's getting impatient. Says he's coming up if you don't come down." Dante looked at me for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "We go together," he said. "You don't go alone. Ever." "Okay." He retrieved a second gun from his desk, checked it, and handed it to me. "Safety's off. If anything goes wrong..." "I know." We moved toward the elevator, Marco falling in behind us. The apartment stretched out like a graveyard, evidence of a war I'd stumbled into and couldn't leave. The elevator doors opened, and we descended toward whatever waited in the street below. The lobby was a battlefield held in suspended animation. Dante's men lined the walls, 6 of them, weapons trained on the entrance where Alexei Volkov's remaining soldiers stood in mirror formation. In the center of the marble floor, like the eye of a hurricane, stood a man who could have been Dante's shadow. Alexei Volkov was beautiful in the way predators are beautiful. All lean muscle and controlled violence, blonde hair swept back from a face that photographs would call aristocratic. But his eyes ruined the illusion. They were dead things, windows into rooms where light no longer reached. Those eyes locked on me the moment the elevator doors opened. "So," he said in accented English, his voice surprisingly soft, "this is the girl who makes Dante Marchetti forget himself." Dante's hand tightened on my arm, not restraining, just grounding. "Alexei." "Dante?" Alexei's gaze dragged from me back to his old friend. "You look terrible. Is she worth it?" "Don't." "Don't what? Ask questions? Wonder why you'd risk everything for a woman you've known less than 2 weeks?" He took a step forward, and immediately the tension in the room ratcheted higher. Guns shifted, fingers sliding toward triggers. "Or maybe I should wonder why you didn't extend my sister the same courtesy. Katya's death was your doing, your strategy, your acceptable loss." Alexei's composure cracked, just slightly, showing the grief underneath. "You signed off on the hit that killed her. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." "I know." Dante's voice was rough, honest. "I've known every day since it happened. There's nothing you can do to me that I haven't already done to myself." "Good." Alexei smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. "Then you'll understand why I need to take something from you. An eye for an eye. A sister for a..." His gaze found mine again. "Whatever she is." I stepped forward, moving out from behind Dante's protection before he could stop me. "I'm Mia, and I'm not Katya." "Obviously." Alexei's head tilted slightly. "Katya was studying architecture. She wanted to rebuild cities, make them beautiful. You sell books." "I do. Different dreams for different women." He moved closer, and I heard Dante shift behind me. Heard the soft click of a safety being released. But still just dreams. Still just lives that can be ended with a phone call. A bullet, a moment of bad timing. "Yes," I agreed. "But the difference is I'm standing here by choice. I walked down here knowing what might happen. Your sister didn't get that choice." Something flickered in those dead eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying if you want to kill me to hurt him, I can't stop you. But it won't be the same. It won't be justice." I kept my voice steady, though my heart was beating so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. "It'll just be you becoming exactly what you hate about Dante. Another man who treats women as weapons instead of people. You think I care about that distinction? I think your sister would." The silence that followed felt infinite. Alexei stared at me, and I watched something move behind his expression. Pain, maybe, or recognition. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You didn't know her. Don't presume..." You're right. I didn't know her. I took another step forward, close enough now that I could see the exhaustion in his face, the grief carved into every line. But I know what it's like to lose someone and spend years being angry at the wrong people. My father drank himself to death because he couldn't pay his debts to men like you and Dante. Men who owned his life without ever knowing his name. That's different. Is it? He was collateral damage too. Just less photogenic. Less useful as justification for war. I could feel Dante behind me, radiating tension, but I didn't turn around. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm asking you to look at me, really look, and decide if killing me makes you feel closer to your sister, or just more alone. Alexei's hand drifted to his waist, where I could see the outline of a gun. Every man in the lobby tensed. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Police, probably, responding to gunfire reports. We were running out of time. She had a necklace, Alexei said suddenly. Katya, a small silver dove our mother gave her before she died. She wore it every day, said it made her feel safe. His eyes were wet now, though no tears fell. They sent it back to me in a plastic evidence bag. The chain was broken. There was blood on the wings. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Sorry doesn't bring her back. No. But neither does this. I gestured at the lobby, at the men with guns, at the years of violence spiraling outward from one terrible decision. Neither does making Dante watch me die. Neither does becoming the kind of man who punishes innocent people for guilty men's choices. She's not innocent. Dante's voice cut through the tension. She chose to stay with me knowing what I am. That makes her complicit. I turned to stare at him. What are you? She's not Katya, Dante continued, his eyes locked on Alexei's. She's not your sister, but she is someone I love, someone I'd trade my life for. So if you need blood, Alexei, take mine. Let her walk away and I'll stay. No weapons, no tricks. Just you and me finishing what we should have. Finished 3 years ago. No. The word ripped from my throat. Dante, don't. It's the only way this ends. His hand found mine, squeezed once. You wanted a different language than violence. This is it. Sacrifice instead of murder. Choice instead of collateral. Alexei studied us both, something complex moving across his face. The sirens were closer now. Someone's radio crackled with urgent Russian. Boss, one of Alexei's men said quietly, we need to move. For a long moment, I thought he'd refuse. Thought he'd shoot us both right there in the lobby, damning the consequences, choosing grief over everything else. Then he lowered his hand from his weapon. You loved my sister, he said to Dante. Once, before the business, before the wars. I remember you at her graduation, how you looked at her. Like she was light. Dante's voice cracked. Like she could save us all from what we were becoming. She couldn't. Alexei's smile was broken, bitter. But maybe this one can. He turned and walked toward the entrance, his men following. At the door, he paused. This doesn't make us even, Dante. It just makes us tired. He looked back one last time. Keep her safe. Don't waste the gift I'm giving you. Then he was gone, disappearing into the city night like smoke. The lobby exhaled collectively. Marco lowered his weapon. Dante's men began securing the exits, checking the bodies, moving with the efficiency of people accustomed to cleaning up after violence. And I stood there, shaking, realizing I'd just negotiated with a killer and survived. Dante pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me so tightly I could barely breathe. Don't ever, he whispered against my hair. Do that again. Make you tell the truth? Risk yourself for me. Too late. I pulled back enough to see his face. I already did. We didn't go back to the penthouse that night. Dante drove us to a house I'd never seen before, somewhere in Westchester, hidden behind gates and winter-bare trees. The kind of place that existed off maps and tax records, where men like him went when the wars got too close. Neither of us spoke during the drive. His hand stayed on my thigh, grounding, while his other hand gripped the wheel with white-knuckle intensity. Blood still streaked his arm from earlier, dried now, a reminder of how close we'd come to different endings. The house was smaller than I expected. Warm. Wood floors and stone fireplaces, books lining the walls. Photographs I didn't recognize scattered across surfaces like forgotten promises. My mother's house, Dante said, watching me take it in. She bought it before she married my father. Her escape plan, she called it. Somewhere that belonged only to her. It's beautiful. She never got to use it. He moved to the fireplace, began building a fire with methodical precision. My father found out about it after she died. He wanted to sell it, erase her secrets. I bought it instead. I sank onto the couch, suddenly, exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation with Alexei was draining away, leaving only the trembling aftermath. How often do you come here? Not often enough. The fire caught, flames licking at dry wood. Dante sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. I keep meaning to stay longer. Read her books, sleep in her bed, figure out who she was before my father turned her into a ghost. You talk about her like she's a mystery. Isn't everyone? Especially the people we love. He turned to face me, and in the firelight his eyes looked almost golden. I don't know if she was happy, if marrying my father was love or survival or something in between. I don't know if she regretted me. She didn't regret you. You can't know that. I can. I touched his face, traced the line of his jaw. Because you're sitting here, in her house, trying to understand her. That's not something a regretted child does. That's something a loved child does. Even if the love was complicated. His hand covered mine, pressed it against his cheek. You could have died tonight. But I didn't. Alexei could have shot you before I finished my offer. Could have decided that hurting me was worth your life. His voice roughened. I watched you walk toward him, and every instinct I have was screaming to pull you back, to put myself between you and danger, to take my choice away. Yes. The admission cost him something. I wanted to lock you in that bedroom and never let you face anything that could hurt you, even if it meant you'd hate me. I wouldn't have hated you. I shifted closer until I was nearly in his lap. But I would have left, eventually, because I can't be with someone who treats me like something fragile that needs to be preserved behind glass. You are fragile. Everyone is. That's what Alexei taught me tonight. That the things we love can be destroyed in seconds. A bullet, a phone call, a moment of bad timing. So what do? Live in fear? Never risk anything? I don't know. Dante's hands slid into my hair, cradling my face like I was something precious and terrifying. Tell me what to do, Mia, because I've spent 3 years knowing exactly what I wanted. Revenge, power, control, and you've destroyed all of that in 2 weeks. Now all I want is you, alive and whole and choosing to stay. And that terrifies me more than any war. I kissed him, slow, deliberate, tasting smoke and exhaustion and something deeper. When I pulled back, his eyes were closed, his breathing unsteady. I want to stay, I whispered. Not because you're keeping me safe or because I'm trapped, but because when I look at you, I see someone who's trying to be better than what he was taught to be. Someone who offered his life for mine. That wasn't heroism. That was selfishness. His eyes opened and they were devastated. I couldn't watch you die. Even if it meant I got to live, I couldn't carry another ghost. Then don't. I stood, pulling him up with me. Don't carry ghosts. Carry me instead. Carry this, whatever we are. He followed me through the house to a bedroom that smelled like lavender and old books. His mother's room, I realized. The bed made with hospital corners, the nightstand holding a water glass and reading glasses, as if she might return any moment. Dante. I turned to face him in the doorway. Are you sure? Nothing about this is sure. He crossed to me, hands finding my waist. Nothing about you makes sense. You should run. Should find someone safe, someone whose past doesn't include body counts and blood debts. Someone who deserves you. What if I don't want someone who deserves me? I unbuttoned his shirt, revealing the bandage I'd applied what felt like years ago. What if I want someone who's broken in the same ways I am? Someone who understands that survival isn't pretty or noble, it's just necessary. Yes. He kissed me again, and this time there was no hesitation. His hands slid beneath my sweater, finding bare skin, mapping territory with reverent attention. I tugged at his shirt until it fell away, revealing the landscape of scars I'd glimpsed before, each one a story, a near miss, a reminder that he'd survived when others hadn't. We undressed slowly, carefully, like we were excavating something fragile from ruins. When we finally came together, skin against skin, breath mixing with breath, it felt less like passion and more like relief, like two people who'd been drowning finally finding air. Afterward, we lay tangled in his mother's sheets, the fire dying in the next room, the world outside locked away behind gates and secrets. I love you, Dante said into the darkness. I don't know if I'm allowed to, if it's fair or right or anything other than selfish, but I love you anyway. I pressed closer, listening to his heartbeat beneath my ear. Then be selfish. Just this once. What if just this once isn't enough? Then we'll figure out what comes after. I tilted my head to look at him. Together. His arms tightened around me, and I felt him exhale, long, shuddering, like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. Together, he repeated. And for the first time since I'd stolen his car in a bullet-torn parking lot, I believed we might survive this. Morning came wrapped in fog and silence. I woke alone, the sheets beside me cold, and for one heart-stopping moment I thought I'd dreamed everything. The house, the confession, the way Dante had held me like I was the only solid thing in his world. Then I smelled coffee. I found him in the kitchen, shirtless despite the November chill, staring out the window at gray mist rolling through bare trees. 2 mugs sat on the counter. He'd been waiting for me to wake. How long have you been up? I asked, accepting the coffee he handed me. A few hours, had calls to make. His voice was rough with exhaustion. The commission wants a meeting. They're unhappy about last night. The commission? The heads of the families. They maintain order, settle disputes, prevent wars from getting too public. He took a long drink, eyes never leaving the window. What happened with Alexei? The bodies, the police response, the fact that it happened in a civilian building? It violated protocols. Ice crystallized in my stomach. What does that mean? It means I need to answer for it. Explain why I prioritized protecting you over maintaining peace. Convince them that Alexei backing down was strategic rather than weakness. He finally turned to face me. It means you're about to meet the people who really run this city. When? 2 hours. I set down my coffee, hands suddenly unsteady. Dante, if I've made things worse for you, you saved my life last night. He crossed to me, cupped my face in his hands. Alexei would have gutted me in that lobby if you hadn't made him see something beyond his grief. The commission knows that, but they also know that I broke rules by keeping you in my home, by involving a civilian in family business. So punish me, not you. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? His smile was grim. I convinced them you're an asset, not a liability. That having you in my life makes me stronger, more strategic, more valuable to their interests. He paused. Or I convinced them to let you go. New identity, new city, a life where my world never touches yours again. No. The word came out fierce, immediate. I'm not running. Mia, I stood in front of Alexei Volkov last night, and I'll stand in front of whoever else you need me to. I gripped his wrists, holding him steady. I chose this. I chose you. Stop trying to give me exits. Something broke in his expression. Relief and desperation tangled together. They'll ask you questions about how we met, why you stayed, what you know about my business. You'll need to lie convincingly. I'm good at lying. I've been lying about who I am for 3 years. What do you mean? I'd never told him, never told anyone really, but standing in his mother's kitchen, about to walk into a room full of men who'd built empires on secrets, I realized I was tired of carrying my own. My father wasn't just a mechanic. He was a fixer. The guy who made stolen cars disappear, who knew how to forge titles and bypass alarms. He taught me everything he knew because he thought I'd need it someday. I watched Dante's face carefully. When he died, I inherited his debts. $30,000 owed to a loan shark in Queens, so I ran. Changed my name from Sofia Terranova to Mia Russo, got a fake degree, built a quiet life where no one would look for me. Sophia, he repeated, tasting the name. Your real name is Sophia. Was. I've been Mia longer now. Does anyone know? Just you and the loan shark, if he's still looking. I released his wrists, stepped back. So yes, Dante, I know how to lie to dangerous men. I've been doing it since I was 23. He stared at me, for a long moment, something like awe crossing his features. You really did steal my car. Despite everything, I laughed. Borrowed. Under duress. Sofia Terranova. He pulled me close, pressed his forehead to mine. The woman who can hotwire Maseratis, negotiate with killers, and keep secrets from the world. How did I ever think you needed protecting? Because you want to be better than what you were. And protecting people feels like redemption. I kissed him softly. But I don't need redemption. I just need you to trust me. I do. Then let's go meet your commission. The meeting was held in a restaurant that looked closed, but hummed with quiet power. 6 men sat around a table in a private room, older, harder, carrying authority like expensive cologne. Dante's father was among them, a silver-haired man with Dante's eyes and none of his softness. I sat beside Dante, hands folded, playing the role of the quiet woman who'd stumbled into something she didn't understand. Let them underestimate me. Let them think I was a mistake to be managed. So, Dante's father said, his voice accented and cold. This is the girl who nearly started a war. This is Mia Russo, Dante corrected, the woman who ended one. By doing what? Appealing to Alexei Volkov's better nature? Another man laughed, short, cruel. The Volkovs don't have better natures. She reminded him of his humanity. Dante's hand found mine under the table, squeezed once. Something we'd all forgotten he possessed. They asked their questions. I answered carefully, weaving truth and lies into something believable. Yes, I'd been at the restaurant by coincidence. Yes, I'd stayed with Dante out of fear for my safety. No, I didn't know the details of his business. Yes, I understood the risks. The lies tasted like survival. Finally, Dante's father leaned back, studying me with those familiar gray eyes. You love my son. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. Why? Because he's trying to be someone his mother would be proud of, even if it kills him. Silence. Then surprisingly, the old man smiled, small, bitter, but real. She would have liked you. Maria, she had your spine. Is that a compliment? In this world? Yes. He looked at Dante. Keep her, but keep her safe. If the Volkovs come again, they won't, Dante said with certainty. Alexei made his choice. Choices change. The old man stood, ending the meeting. Remember that. We left the restaurant as the sun broke through the fog, painting everything gold. What now? I asked as Dante opened the car door. He kissed me, there on the street, where anyone could see, where his world and mine finally irrevocably merged. Now we live, he said. We rebuild. We figure out who we are when we're not just surviving. And if danger comes again, then we face it, together. His smile was small, genuine, the first truly hopeful thing I'd seen on his face. I'm done with exits, Mia. You're my destination. I kissed him again, tasting coffee and promises and the dangerous possibility of happiness. Then let's go home, I said. And we did.